welcome. It is Sunday night, so yeah, it means it's time for our first episode of Sunday Night Scoreboard. My name is
Sunday Night
by
Scoreboard.
my two esteemed co-hosts, Joe Will and Clack. So, guys, it's our first episode. I think we should go around the room and share a little bit about ourselves for anyone who might not know who we are. So, Joe Will, you can go and take the floor first.
Yeah, I'm Joe Will. I've been on a couple other shows on here, Rolling with the Tide. I was on Third and Three once, so glad we have this show. This is something me and Tyler have been doing. We've been podcasting and stuff with each other for a while, so I wanted to get him on the CTS network because I think he'd be a good addition. So that's pretty much it. I mean,
yeah. And then Clack, you want to tell me something a little about yourself? I actually have. This is the first time I've ever got to talk to you. I've heard so much about you.
The infamous Clack.
Yeah, I'm Clack. You'll probably know me from Twitter. I have the occasional bad take and the occasional, say dumb things on Twitter. I was on Rolling with the Tide to talk all things Alabama, and yeah, all around big sports fan and excited about this show and what we bring to CTS.
Yeah, and then my name's Tyler Shivish. Obviously, I'm the newest one here. I'm taking over on Rolling with the Tide for these two as they move to Bama Brigade. Their new show coming out soon, so you should be sure to check that out as well. I know we got a lot of new shows. Huge Minnesota Vikings fan, obviously, so you'll get to share my pain throughout the season. And I'm just happy to be here. So, obviously, I kind of wanted to start with some game-related things, just some stuff that happened around the league. And I feel like it's impossible to talk about Week 15 of the NFL without talking about Urban Meyer getting fired. 13 weeks, I think he coached. He was 2-11, excuse me. Finally got fired after a bunch of stuff compounded, right? Like there was a video of him at a bar with this girl dancing on him. That's fine. That's his personal issue. There was apparently the stories of him telling his coordinators that they were losers and they didn't deserve their jobs. He also refused to play James Robinson, one of their best players, because of some personal vendetta against him. And then finally it came out that he apparently kicked Josh Lambo, their kicker, in practice and told him to make his freaking kicks. So all of that, apparently that was enough to fire him. So what do you guys think about the whole Urban Meyer tenure in Jacksonville?
I'll let Clack go first.
Well, I think it was a bad hire to start with. I don't get the hire to begin with, and I think as soon as I think to me the red flag was when he signed Tim Tebow to be his tight end. Tim Tebow, who had no experience at a tight end and had never even played the position. I think that in itself was a red flag, but I just, there were so many red flags to this, and I don't understand why. I don't even know how you stayed on this long. I mean, you have the first round draft pick. You've got a decent receiving core. There's no reason to start the season 0-8. And it was just an awful hire all around. Urban Meyer is, a washed up coach, and there's not even much to say about it, honestly.
Well, actually, the problem started before the signing of Tim Tebow. I mean, we draft Travis Etienne in the first round when you don't necessarily need a running back. Like James Robinson had been absolutely fine for them the year before, and you take Travis Etienne, which is, I can live with that. And then also, I think they tried to hire the strength and conditioning coach from Iowa who had some legal issues, so they had to end up not hiring him. And then, like you touched on. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, it wasn't even legal issues. It was like 8 former players that accused him of being like openly racist in practice, including their running back. And then Urban Meyer vouched for him and basically said he was a great dude. And then all the accusations came to light, and then they immediately walked back on oh, sorry, I should have vetted him better. Mm-hmm. And so, that's what I was going to say is it started when they were trying to hire their staff.
I agree with what you said, Joe, but at the same time, Urban Meyer is not necessarily the one who drafted Travis Etienne, but I agree.
Well, also, they tried to swing for the fences on the hiring, and I kind of see the direction they're going in, but it would have made more sense for them just to kind of go with the conservative pick. You have the number one pick in the draft. Like, you're going to get Trevor Lawrence. Bring in a coach that like fits the team better, not necessarily somebody who's going to put butts in the seats and be a big time home run hit, because that doesn't always work out. We've seen it fail on multiple occasions. This is just probably the worst one we've seen in recent years.
What
And,
about? Sorry.
Oh, go ahead. I was just gonna say, everyone knew too when they hired him. Immediately, they were just like, his personality will not do well in the NFL. Like, he gets by in the like college football because he's good at like recruiting and good at putting together a roster when players have to listen to him. But showing people respect and like treating other people like men was never really his strong suit to begin with, and that's what you have to do in the NFL.
Right. How much of it though do you think has to do with the fact that Trevor Lawrence did not develop like anybody thought he would? Like, I mean, when you look at the season previews, everybody thought Trevor Lawrence probably going to be Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year. That's not the case. How much of Urban's downfall do you think had to do with the fact that Trevor Lawrence is not what everyone thought he was going to be?
I would turn that back and say, how much do you think Trevor struggling was because of Urban not treating him, like he should, the number one pick? Like, I'm not saying you got to coddle the guy, but obviously there was locker room issues from week one. And it's
they waited till everyone knew he was going to be the starter, but they continued to wait till like the end of the preseason, a couple weeks before camp, to announce him as a starter. Which is just so ridiculous for them to even do that.
I will say though, like, I think it's way too early to say that Trevor Lawrence hasn't like developed like they hope. He hasn't come out of the gate firing, but people, I said this before with Joe on some of our other shows, but people like Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and like Lamar Jackson have kind of ruined the expectation for rookie quarterbacks because they came out and immediately were like a top quarterback in the league. Mm-hmm. And so I think that you got to give them a little bit. Same with like Zach Wilson or Justin Fields. They haven't exactly lit up the league. I mean, pretty much anyone but Mac Jones hasn't really lit up the league, but I think that you got to be patient. They're playing the hardest position to play in one of the hardest sports in the world. So I don't know. So the next thing I wanted to bring up before we talk about some of the games that happened this week, or some of the games that are going to happen. They were supposed to happen today, right? The Raiders, Browns, Seahawks, Rams, and Washington football team and Eagles games, but they all got postponed due to COVID, which is pretty interesting because I remember, I guess I have a problem with it because last year they made the Denver Broncos play without a quarterback. They made some teams like the Steelers had to make up all the games later, but they didn't like postpone the games for anyone, and they said they weren't going to. So I guess I don't know why they're giving these teams the exception this year.
Well, I think for the Broncos situation, the reason why they made them play that game is it was kind of to prove a point, because I guess I didn't figure this out until a couple weeks ago because somebody was talking about it on Sports Talk Radio, which I like to listen to. I guess the Broncos, what they did for the quarterback meetings was they had like the devices to make sure that they were like spaced out. And so what they would do is they would like put them in the corner of the room or something, and then they would go sit like around each other, which, completely goes against the protocols. Mm-hmm. So once the NFL found that out, they were like, oh, you guys want to do this? Well, okay, that's fine. We're going to play this game. And also last year, I think the NFL was very nervous about the season, not even going on at all. So they wanted to make sure they got all of their money for the games, which at the end of the day, a lot of this is really just about making money. The Super Bowl is in LA this year, right? I don't think it's very convenient that the LA mask order that they just put in effect, I think not too long ago, ends on the day of the Super Bowl. Like, it's the NFL. Why I don't like it so much, I mean, not to go on a big tangent, is it's really all about money at the end of the day. Like, that's money makes NFL essentially.
Mm-hmm. I think the NFL is doing the right thing by postponing these games, and the fact that there's a vaccine available, and I think most players are probably vaccinated and are testing positive, which goes into the fact that I feel like the NFL does need to reevaluate their protocols, but I think they're making the right decision by moving these games, trying to get as many of these players who are currently positive to test negative so they can play. Because you look at these games that are being postponed, every single one of these games involves teams that are with playoff berths on the line. So I think you made the right decision because all these teams need wins. the only two teams that in these games postponed that are not even going to that have no shot at the playoffs are the Eagles and Seahawks. So I think they made the right decision, but I think ultimately the NFL needs to reevaluate their COVID policies because I mean we can't have this every week. We can't get into the playoffs and get to the divisional round and Patrick Mahomes or Mac Jones test positive for COVID. I mean that takes away from the game, that takes away from the teams. So somehow, some way, the NFL needs to do something about this, about the protocols. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also kind of interesting for me. I've mentioned it before. I'll mention it a million times. I love the Vikings. We'll see a really cool or interesting situation this week in that the Vikings have a Monday night game, and they'll actually be the more rested team because we play the Rams next week. So the Rams will be coming off a Tuesday game. And do you think it's ever happened in NFL history where a Monday night team is more rested than their opponent?
Yeah, it hasn't.
So Spencer asks, do y'all know why the NFL changed their stance on if a team can't play because of COVID, it's a forfeit? Why change it now? That was kind of my point too, is I thought they said that they wouldn't change that. And they said if you couldn't field a team, I think what they changed was that both of these teams could field a team, right? Like they have 20 something guys on the list. They could field a team. It just wouldn't be a very competitive team. And I mean, you look at like the Broncos last year, they weren't above making people play with wide receivers at quarterback. But I do agree with Clack. I think it'll be much better both for like the viewing experience and for kind of league parity almost, where it's more fair to postpone the games as long as both teams can. But I'm glad that they're not canceling more games, right?
Let's be honest, though. I mean, nobody to begin with really is all that interested in Browns Raiders. So the fact that all the top players were going to be out just made the game even worse than it was going to be to begin with. So I'm glad that they decided to move this game, make it a little bit less horrendous. Same goes for my Washington football team against the Philadelphia Eagles, who they will be playing Tuesday night. We had both quarterbacks out, most of our defensive line. Like it was going to be like watching a preseason beatdown game. I mean, still a lot of guys are going to be out for Washington football team, but a lot less guys than would have been if they had played today. It would have been absolutely horrendous.
Can I add one thing to what Tyler was saying? And you had a very good point. I think the rules, the standards that the NFL put in place to begin the season, I think that was basically, they didn't say this, but they meant it. That basically, if you're not vaccinated, if these teams, if the NFL did not feel these teams were not vaccinated, like let's put it like if it was one team was vaccinated, one team wasn't, I don't think they would be letting them reschedule. I think that would be a forfeit. But I think the NFL looks at it. These teams are vaccinated. They did everything they could do to prevent from getting COVID. Mm-hmm. They're going to give them some leeway. I feel like that's what it is, honestly.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Like if it was like Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins or someone, like they're not going to get the exception, right. But because So
yes,
wait. I just want to get you guys' take on this. This is breaking news. Bo Nix has committed to Oregon.
No way. Bo Nix to Oregon. So you got to be a Bo Nix fan now, Joe Will.
Wow. That move right there. I'm telling you. I've never I hate Bo Nix because he's Bo Nix at Auburn, but I've always thought that he's had potential, and that's a big time move. I'm very surprised by that.
I just want to say one thing, and this is something me and Joe have argued about. I think he agrees with me now. Look what happens when Mario Cristobal leaves Oregon. They're actually going to get better.
Yeah.
Just wanted to throw that out there.
Mario Cristobal has done a whole lot of nothing for the Oregon Ducks, right? Like, I mean, they're supposed to be the best team in the Pac-12 every year, correct? And they normally are, but they don't do anything with it because the Pac-12 just kind of eats itself alive.
This is the year Bo Nix gets better.
I would.
Clack, you know what I'm talking about.
No, I don't.
Oh, he's having fun. Like,
yeah,
I wouldn't be
exactly.
surprised if he was a dark horse Heisman.
Okay, yeah, now I get it.
I'm about to tweet that. I have to.
No, you have to. So
I did not expect that.
Speaking of Mario Cristobal and how great or maybe not great he is, I want to get your guys' take. Who do you think is the next coach in the NFL fired? It was Urban Meyer. We tweeted it out. Follow us on Twitter at I gotta find it real quick. I don't know. We changed the @.
We've changed the @ like 3 times. We're all over the place, but
yeah, I'll put it on the screen in a little bit. But we tweeted it out. We said, like, who do you think the first coach fired in the season is? I guessed right. It was Urban Meyer. I feel like that was the very safe bet, though. I don't deserve applause for that. Clack, I know you had someone else in mind for the first coach fired.
I'm gonna change that. I'm gonna change it because the Giants have indicated they're gonna keep Joe Judge. So I'm gonna go on a little bit of a, I don't know, limb here because that's who I am. Kyle Shanahan.
Okay,
that's
a
pretty
very
big.
bold one.
I mean, they're just not performing like they should be. I mean, they're like the 49ers should not be out of the playoff hunt this early in the season or on the cusp of being out of the playoff hunt. They're not performing like they did 2 and 3 years ago. And like he's gradually gotten worse. The records have gradually gotten worse as the year goes on. I think you pull the plug.
I don't know about that. I mean, they're in playoff contention, and this is still a team that's been absolutely just ravished by injuries. A little less this year, but still a good amount. Last year, they had a crap ton of injuries. They could barely field a team. So I disagree with that. I think that Vic Fangio in Denver is still one of those guys that I look at that is probably a lot more likely to get fired than Shanahan is.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see. In case y'all were not watching, Teddy Bridgewater has just gone down with did not look like a good injury. They had to cart him off. Drew Lock was warming up when I saw. So Drew Lock, we'll see what Drew Lock can do with that team. Maybe. I mean, they got to try at the playoffs too.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys too that's been so up and down and has been kind of waiting for his moment to prove to some people that he can still be a starting NFL quarterback. So, he might be in a contract year. I could be wrong too. If Bridgewater can't play for them the rest of the year and Lock balls out, then maybe that's a guy that gets traded or something. So there's a lot on the line here for him.
So Bryant said Arthur Smith, hopefully. Unfortunately, I don't think they're going to fire. Most rookie head coaches don't get fired after 1 year, right? They normally get 2.
Yeah, no.
Cliff Kingsbury.
Unless you're Urban Meyer.
There's just no way Cliff Kingsbury gets fired. Even if they lose out, they still got 10 wins. Like, they don't fire Cliff Kingsbury at 10-7.
I don't get the hate for Arthur Smith. I mean, it's his first season. He was taking over for Dan Quinn, who was a terrible head coach. I think that's a little bit premature, to go for Arthur Smith, I think. I mean, it's his first season taking over for a terrible coach. I think he deserves time. I think you got to I think as long as Matt Ryan's in Atlanta, this is what you're going to get.
Yeah. And so do you think the Falcons should look to get another quarterback next year?
Oh, yes. Not in this next year's draft. This next year's draft is not a quarterback-friendly draft at all.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, it's Matt Corral, and then we talked about it. I like Malik Willis. I know you guys don't like Malik Willis at all. But other than that, like, is Sam Howell still going to go to the draft? Maybe. And so I have no idea who I take. The year after, though, like you said, next year's would be great. I mean, you got Bryce Young, and then you got a couple other, you have DJ if you want him. But
I don't know if anybody will.
Yeah, I don't know if even Clemson.
Bo Nix is always available.
It's true. He's a guy that, with the one more year, could improve his stock a lot. I'm not even joking. So I think we should talk about some of the games that have happened.
Hot take. Can I throw a hot take into here?
Yes, please.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Bo Nix is a Heisman finalist next year for Oregon. Bookmark it. I didn't say he's going to win it. I said he's going to be a Heisman finalist.
No.
Bo Nix commits to Oregon, and now you're talking like the Auburn Twitter people.
Dude, Bo Nix is not a bad quarterback.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. He's not bad at all.
But, I mean, Joe, what is your thing with Oregon now lately? It's like you've always, is Oregon your second team here?
Yeah, Oregon and Penn State are his family schools.
I can tell.
I expect so much from Oregon.
Bo Nix needs
Bo Nix.
Whatever his name is.
Throws
he needs
picks.
the offensive coach. He doesn't have an offensive coach. he's not going to develop that well. It's going to be just like he was at Auburn. I just don't think it's going to be.
Except the Pac-12 sucks, so it's a
True.
lot easier to ball out there than it is in the
Oh,
SEC. Even with Lincoln Riley, USC. I mean, I don't know, man. Bo Nix.
Joe, you want to see the reaction to you saying that? Here you go, buddy.
Laughing. Just wait. It's a hot take for a reason.
Bookmark it, I like it though.
Clip it, put it everywhere. I don't care.
Speaking of Oregon quarterbacks, Justin Herbert and the LA Chargers lost this week.
Oh boy,
34-28. Travis Kelsey walked it off in overtime, and I have to ask you guys: is Travis Kelsey on pace to be the best tight end of all time? Like, do you think he ends up in that conversation right now? I guess I should amend that. He is on pace, right? He has the most tight end yards in a season, fastest to 8,000 yards. He has 6 consecutive seasons with over 1,000 yards. Like, no other tight end had more than 4. So I think he's going to be up there, right? It's Tony Gonzalez and Gronk above him.
It's really hard because, at the end of the day, a lot of these tight ends will go down as the best or some of the best of all time are all tight ends that we're like watching right now and that we've seen. We grew up seeing Tony Gonzalez. We have Gronkowski, Kelsey, and Kittle. And then Mark Andrews is having a great year. So he'll be in that conversation. Like it's crazy that we get to watch, these tight ends every week. As far as being the best of all time, I don't know about that because not that this matters too much, but I do think you have to look at the offense with Mahomes, and he has Travis Kelsey, so he's the beneficiary of a very good offense being called by Eric Bieniemy, who's offensive coordinator. But Kelsey is a great tight end. I still think if I would to rank the tight ends right now, just right like out of all the guys in the league, I think George Kittle is better than Kelsey, but it's like 1A, 1B, and then I guess 1C with Gronkowski too. I mean, there's just so much talent. It's hard to pick one.
Off the top of my head, like guaranteed right now, pretty much no matter what happens on their career, there's 3 greatest of all time players in the league right now. Okay. This might be a hot take. There might be more, there might be less, but you got Tom Brady. There's no debating Tom Brady, right?
Agreed.
Right.
Aaron Donald, in my mind, is going to be the best defensive tackle of all time. He's already won 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards. The guy's just an absolute monster. And Justin Tucker, when it's all said and done, will be the best kicker of all time.
I forgot about Justin Tucker. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I think those 3, no matter what happens in their career, are probably going to wind up the GOATs. I mean, Tom Brady already is, and you could make an argument for the other 2.
Mm-hmm.
Travis Kelsey, I think the biggest question is Gronk is still in the league, and a lot of people say Gronk might be the best, and so he's only got time to expound that. But so much can happen when it comes to greatest of all time. Longevity is like the biggest thing, right? So I don't know if Travis Kelsey can keep it up for all these years, but I mean, he's done it for 6 years in a row now. Also, what is wrong with the AFC West when it comes to playing the Kansas City Chiefs? They're like 1-7 against them or something in the last 4 years.
It's like they go brain dead when they're trying to beat them. Like, I mean, the Chargers were 0-3 on 4th downs. Like, analytics, what are you doing? Chargers gave that game away on Friday or Thursday night. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Joe, there you go. Here's a question for you. What do you think Knicks can do at Oregon that Auburn couldn't do? And Auburn has a better defense than Oregon.
I said it earlier. I just think that the Pac-12 is a soft conference as a whole. It's Conference of Champions, my ass. It's a soft conference, and I think that Bo Nix, who's shown that he can, battle against some SEC defenses, I think he'll be just fine there. I know Clack made a big deal about them not having hired an offensive coach, but they decided to go ahead and hire Dan Lanning from Georgia. I don't think that'll really matter. They still have a ton of talent. They have a very young, talented defense. Obviously, you're losing Thibodeau, but you still have a lot of those guys like Noah Sewell, linebacker, awesome, and Micah Pittman, like a lot of very great receivers. The recruiting class this year, not great, but I think they were top 5 last year, so they still have a ton of talent, and that's why I think Bo Nix will end up having success at Oregon. But I'm very biased too because piece of my heart is with Oregon. So,
fun fact about me: I went to O'Fallon Township High School, and our logo, we got a cease and desist from the University of Oregon because our logo is just the O, but like a yellow instead of a greenish color. And our like chant, we just did the O and stuff. So we were basically just Oregon Midwest.
Ooh.
So, last night, the Indianapolis Colts ran away with the game against the Patriots 27-17. Sorry, I'm reading all of them because I came up with clever wordplay for our different little topics, and I'm proud of myself for it. Do you guys think that Jonathan Taylor could win MVP?
I think he should win it, but I feel like they're very partial to quarterbacks because, the league puts a lot of emphasis on quarterbacks. So I think it'll end up being a quarterback, but I do think that Jonathan Taylor has been phenomenal this year for the Colts. He's pretty much single-handedly carried them. I think he should win it, but I don't know if he can do that.
Clack, what do you think?
I agree. I agree, but I mean, like Bryant just said, Tom Brady. I mean, as long as Tom Brady's in the league, it doesn't matter if he plays 6 games and has 500 yards. I feel like he's going to win it.
See, that's actually
he's been good this year too.
Yeah, Tom Brady's been like the best quarterback. But I think that's kind of why I think Jonathan Taylor might actually have a chance to win it. Just because you hear, I don't know how much you guys like the NBA, but you hear about LeBron fatigue all the time, where he wins so many MVPs that they get tired of it. I could very well see Tom Brady having the same kind of effect this year, where it's like he's been great this season. He leads or is in second in pretty much every major stat. But they're so tired of Tom Brady being great that they want to give it to someone else. And like Jonathan Taylor actually has an argument to win it. Side note, I'm really sad that Derrick Henry got hurt because he would absolutely be in the lead, in my opinion, for MVP right now if he was still playing. But I do think, in my opinion, the way things are going right now, Jonathan Taylor will win MVP just because they're going to get tired of Tom Brady winning all the major awards.
Depends on how the Cardinals finish. If the Cardinals can right this ship and start winning again, Kyler Murray's got a shot.
Yeah, but
they looked horrible today.
They
got stomped by the Lions. And
how do you lose to the Lions?
Yeah, right?
I mean, that's bad.
That is really bad. But also, Clack, we were talking about it yesterday, and I want to get your take. I know you were saying you had some words against Bill Belichick. I know you later said it was Josh McDaniels and stuff, but you're talking stuff on Bill Belichick, and so I got to make you defend yourself here.
Okay, I just don't think that Belichick is. I'm trying to think how to word it. I think Belichick is the greatest coach in NFL history, but I also think that he's not developing Mac Jones. Like, Mac has been the greatest rookie quarterback this year. I mean, but I just don't feel like Belichick is opening up the playbook enough. And, like, I feel like at this point, like, I know it's trial and error, but you got to treat Mac Jones just like you would Tom Brady. Run the same plays. Like I've watched, like, last night was the first Patriots game I haven't watched because I was at the basketball game. It was the first game I haven't watched, but like, Bill Belichick has probably, they've probably gone maybe deep 5 or 6 times. Like, Mac Jones is a deep ball king. Like, you got to go deep a lot. Quit just throwing short and out routes. But I think in all honesty, it comes back to the receivers. Like, Mac has had a few interceptions this year. All of them have been receiver tipped balls that should have been caught. They don't have the receivers, and I don't think Josh McDaniels is the best of play callers. I don't get the hype behind him being a head coach somewhere, but I think it comes back to Josh McDaniels' play calling, and I think it also comes back to they have no receivers. I mean, when your best receiver is Nelson Aguilar, that's not saying much. I mean,
the receivers, it's like the island of misfits. You got Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar.
You've got Hunter Henry.
N'Keal Harry. Well, no, I mean that Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith are pretty solid, but I do agree with you. I think they're being very conservative with the play calling. They're not putting a lot on Mac's shoulders, which is ridiculous because even though they don't have great receivers, I think Mac has shown at Alabama what he can do.
Look what he's done. Look what he's done when they're not opening up the playbook. Imagine if they open up the playbook. Dream scenario is Mac is probably my favorite Bama athlete of all time. So my dream scenario right now thinking is Steve Sarkisian gets fired at Texas, which I think is an inevitable thing. Steve Sarkisian is offensive coordinator on the New England Patriots. I think he needs that kind of offensive coordinator.
I think that Bill Belichick just doesn't seem to trust Mac a lot either. Like
Exactly.
we saw it in their win against Buffalo. He attempted all of 3 passes, I think.
Well,
and I get it. It was windy or whatever, but like you got to trust your quarterback in those situations at least sometimes.
Well, I go back to the game. This game has bothered me for a while. Like when I think about it, the game against the Buccaneers, that was wasn't the same weather situation, but it was cold and rainy as well in that game. They tried like a 57-yard Nick Folk field goal on a 4th and 1. I'm like, if you can't trust your offense to pick up a 4th and 1 to get you in better field goal range, then what are you doing? It's just the same situation last night. I didn't watch the game, but I was keeping up with it. I was 4th and short. They kicked the field goal when you're down by 10.
Yeah.
I think it was down by 10, and I think they
missed they were down by 13, and it made it down by 10, which was even worse.
Right. I'm like, if you can't trust your quarterback at a 4th and 2, 4th and 3 situation, what are you doing? And Mac Jones has literally given them 0 reasons not to trust him.
Yeah.
And I just don't get it. Tom Brady is almost the same situation that Tom Brady came up in. Drew Bledsoe went out, and Tom Brady came up. It didn't take time at all. Bill Belichick automatically opened it up for Tom Brady. Like, why are you not doing this to Mac Jones? What is he seeing in Mac that's keeping him from let's open up this playbook. Let's do what we've done for 20 years.
Yeah. And before we get to the next game, here's a little bit of a hot take. Henry's an edge rusher. Taylor gets his yards up the gut and has more yards after contact than Henry. Taylor is superior than Derrick Henry. Obviously, that's going to trigger all 3 of us. We're all Bama boys. But you look at the offensive lines that they have, right? Like, Jonathan Taylor's running behind maybe the best offensive line in the entire league. So, easily, he's running up the middle, but also they get a punch of push every single play. And it's just Derrick Henry. I could accept that Taylor's more of an all-around running back, right? Like, Derrick Henry's not really much of a pass catcher. He's had a couple games this year where he's been, better about it. But I remember, last year they got Jonathan Taylor involved a lot through screens and, short passes. But Derrick Henry is just the most physical runner I've ever seen. And I used to watch, Adrian Peterson back in the day. So, I don't know. But, we were kind of alluding to it earlier, but next game we want to talk about is the Lions upsetting the Cardinals 30-12. Just hilarious, and now I can finally laugh where the Vikings aren't the only team that lost to the Lions this year. And so now, I think the biggest ramifications of this, though, is the Lions won, and you're never gonna. I know you never want to lose games on purpose, right? But by winning this game, the Lions no longer have the number 1 draft pick. The Jaguars do, actually, because the Lions are 2-10-1, and the Jaguars are 2-12 now. So I guess the Lions are 2-11-1. But it doesn't really matter if you don't draft well. So I don't know how.
Well, what they're gonna take? They're probably gonna take what, Thibodeau or Hutchinson? I would take Hutchinson over Thibodeau. But I'll be interested to see who's going to, with the prospects, when the NFL season's over, there's always so much hype around them. And I think some of that Thibodeau hype has just decreased a little bit. But I bet you, when he goes to the combine and has his pro day, it'll heat right back up again.
Yeah. And
somebody will be falling into that trap to take him number 1 overall, just like I watched my Washington football team do when they needed a quarterback and they took Chase Young. But not to keep tying it to my football team, but I'm not a huge fan of the edge rusher, number 1 overall or top 3. It just, I don't know, doesn't ever make too much sense to me. But to each their own.
Yeah, I had a buddy that gave me the hot take that the Lions wanted to win so that they could pick Hutchinson like 2 or 3 and not get blasted for taking him number 1. Which,
I wouldn't be
you know,
surprised.
it's joking, but I could see the argument for it. So what happened to the Cardinals, right? They've been struggling recently, and they started off so hot. I think they were the last undefeated team in the league, if memory serves, and now they've lost like 3 of the last 4 games or something like that. I know Kyler Murray's been hurt, but like, can either of you please explain to me what happened to them? Like, why they kind of fell off a cliff?
Their defense has been, for lack of better terms, shit the last month, pretty much. Like, they had one of the best defenses in the NFL, I know, because I had them in fantasy. But their defense has just not been able to stop anybody at all, and that's part of it. And then, like somebody said right here, Kyler Murray is hurt, and I do think, well, he's still banged up though. I agree with that, and I also just think that Cliff Kingsbury is just trying to do too much with these play calls. I mean, James Conner has been on a tear this year, and they're still kind of like hesitant to give him the ball. And I feel like Cliff Kingsbury tries to do way too much and doesn't just, go with the guys that have gotten them up to this point this year.
Yeah, I agree with everything Joe said. I think a lot of it has. I mean, when you look back at that game against the Rams, the Monday night game, I remember it was this group text. It was a group text I'm in somewhere. Oh, it talks
Mr. Popular.
Yeah, oh, look at me on my group text.
I think it was. I don't think it was our group text. It was one of y'all said something about like Cliff Kingsbury's That's a hard name to say.
Take your time.
Let's try this one more time.
That's all, folks. Cliff Kingsbury.
Cliff Kingsbury's play calling is very mid. They had a couple of situations in that game against the Rams where his play calling gave the game away. And I think, like you said, he's trying to do too much. And at the same time, the defense has not been what it was to start the season. And you go back, and I think that loss against the Packers really kind of threw them in a tailspin. You go back and look at that game; they were 3 yards away from winning that game. They were a miscommunication away from winning that game, staying undefeated. And I think that game threw them into a tailspin. And ever since, they just haven't been able to recover. They're banged up. They are banged up. So it's going to be interesting to see when they get back to fully healthy if they can actually go back to what they were. But at the same time, did anybody expect the Cardinals to even be in the playoffs this year? Like, I feel like
I thought they were going to be a wild card team.
I agree. I feel like they're finally playing like we actually thought they were going to play. Is kind of a mid-tier team.
They are who we thought they were.
Yeah. I also thought the Rams were going to go out and be this like unstoppable force, but they joined us all in participating in No Win November.
I had them as my Super Bowl pick. With that defense, and they still have 9 wins, so I mean they're not that bad.
Yeah, but
that defense, I thought Matt Stafford. Hard to get used to that change. I thought Matt Stafford would actually be good in Sean McVay's system, but that defense has not been what I hoped it was or thought it would be.
Yeah, they went out and traded for Von Miller, and then immediately they gave up like 30 points the next week. And I thought Von Miller was going to be huge, and he's been like kind of not playing that much for them. But when he has played, he hasn't been like that big of a game changer. I did it too now. God damn it, Clack. Matt Stafford was like the MVP frontrunner through the first like month and a half of the season, and then he just kind of regressed back to average. Cooper Kupp, though, I will say, has been incredible this season.
Yeah.
The Rams don't have a running game. For one thing,
No. You know what the problem is with the Rams is that their offensive line is mid. We keep talking about mid. That's the problem with the Rams. They have Cooper Kupp. They have, Van Jefferson. They had Robert Woods before he went down. Henderson's good, but their offensive line is not good. I mean, as much as I like Andrew Whitworth, he's 40 years old.
Yeah.
And then you've got a bunch of other just kind of no-name guys on there, and that used to be a strength for them, and it's not. And so that's the problem you see is when they go up against these teams with really good defensive lines, like when they play Tennessee, that offensive line can't hold up enough time to give Stafford to throw the ball. And so that's the problem with them. It's their offensive line. That's the only thing that worries me about them. And then I guess defensive line, aside from like, Von Miller and that. I mean, you can have Von Miller, Jalen Ramsey, and Aaron Donald, but a couple of those other guys on the defensive line need to step up as well. So mostly offensive line and then a little bit defensive line, aside from Aaron Donald, of course, because he's phenomenal.
Yeah. And then so next up, the Dolphins survived the Jets 31-24. I was watching this game because I wanted to
Hawaiian
watch
Prince.
my sweet Hawaiian Prince Tua play. And they went up 24-17. He immediately threw a pick six. And so it was a lot closer than it probably should have been. But the Dolphins started 1-7. They won 6 straight. They're now back to 7-7. So what are you guys, your opinions on Tua? What do you think? How you think he's been so far? Tua.
I mean, he's been good. I mean, I think, and I said this either on Twitter or to y'all earlier. Imagine if he actually had coaching. Like, Brian Flores is not a good coach. I mean, I'll say that like it is. If he had the coaching from somebody like Sean McVay, Sean Payton, I think he would be a top 10 quarterback. But he doesn't have coaching. Despite the fact he doesn't have coaching, he's been good. I think if he could get in a good coach's system, like a good offensively run system, I think he'd be great.
I'd love
He's
to
also been
see.
injured, though.
Yeah, I would love to see if this isn't going to happen, but if the Dolphins were able to get like Eric Bieniemy as their head coach or something, I mean, that would be perfect. I do think Brian Flores has never been a great coach, and I think that's part of it, combined with just injuries. And then I think all the media stuff, I mean, does hurt him. I mean, I'm sure he'd never admit to letting it get to him, but the media is so just not a fan of Tua. Anytime he does something bad, they're quick to point it out. And so that's, the combination of all those three things I think is rough. I'd like to see Tua, get a new start on a different team. I think that would help him out a lot too, change the scenery, which we could see. I mean, before the trade deadline, there was all the speculation of Dolphins getting Deshaun Watson. If all that Deshaun Watson stuff's cleared up, would not be all that surprised if they went out and got him and just dumped Tua.
I think that the lack of confidence that Brian Flores has displayed into it continuously has to be like weighing on his mental, right? Last year, they would refuse to commit to him. They kept like switching him out for Ryan Fitzpatrick. This year, it was like a competition with Jacoby Brissett. And then he kept in Brissett as long as he could before he had to put Tua back in. So you can tell that whatever the rumors are, right? The rumors were that Brian Flores really wanted Justin Herbert, not Tua. Maybe that's true, but that can't be good for a second-year quarterback when your coach pretty obviously does not believe in you. And then
I agree.
So finally, we want to, this is our first episode. We want to get in the rhythm of things. We want to end every episode talking about the Sunday night game that's coming up. We'll give a little bit of preview and some predictions for it. So the Saints versus the Buccaneers. Do you guys think that the Saints stand a chance tonight with Taysom Hill at quarterback? Because I already gave you my opinion on this. I do not like Taysom Hill at all, but I want to know what you guys think.
No, Saints or Bucks by 20.
Clack.
What?
It's the NFL. Come on.
Okay.
We just prime example today. If we had done this show this morning, you probably would have said Cardinals by 20 over the Lions. And the NFL is super predictable. That's why I always.
It's also Tom Brady. I mean, the best.
Yeah, I know. I'm not saying they're gonna lose, but
they did lose last time, though.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're gonna win, but they still have Alvin Kamara. I mean, they have guys that can play on that side of the ball too. They don't have Drew Brees or Michael Thomas, but they have Alvin Kamara, who's very good. Who they're going to feed the ball to.
How overrated Michael Thomas is?
We're not talking about that. That's a side tangent. I'm just saying that I don't think they're going to win by 20. I think it'll be a little bit closer than that. But I do think Brady's going to go off, and he had 4 touchdowns the last time they played. Had a pick, but I think he'll do what he does best, and that's ball out. And the game is being played in Tampa Bay.
Exactly.
They lost last time. I think they were caught off guard a little bit by some things in that game, but playing in the Superdome is always tough, and I think this week playing at home, it'll be a completely different game.
Great.
No, Clack, I do completely agree, though. I know Joe didn't want to talk about it, but Michael Thomas is maybe the most overrated receiver in the entire league, and he set the single season catch record, which people are really quick to bring up. But he only set that because they had no one else, and Drew Brees couldn't throw more than 5 yards, so he just kind of threw little passes to him throughout the entire
No, I mean I agree. I'm just saying for time wise, I didn't know if we were wrapping up.
No,
I was
it's
I didn't want to get in this
time.
20-minute tangent or whatever about Michael Thomas.
I hope Cruz hears me say that. I will be sure he does. But yeah, Michael Thomas is overrated.
I'll give credit where he's due. He's got great hands, right? But he can't really run routes that well, and he's not fast.
He's also a royal pain in the ass, just on social media and everything. So that makes me hate him even more.
But most wide receivers are kind of divas, I will say. It's just it comes with the position, right? Wide receivers in court.
We're gonna have I would like to point out while we do this, we could potentially have if I'm reading this right, a 4-way tie for the AFC North at the end of this week.
Okay.
Who saw that coming?
Yeah. I think the Bengals are the biggest surprise. I would have said any other team would have in contention. I didn't think Joe Burrow would make a big step like he has, but he's been playing pretty well in my opinion. And
yeah, it looks like they're gonna hold on to beat the Broncos. They're up by 5, driving, and I mean there's 8 minutes left in the game, but I think they'll end up winning this game unless Drew Lock pulls a rapid out of thin air. But
and then Joe, real quick, I know I was told beforehand this question would get asked, but you're the NFC East guy. So what about Dallas? They're 10-4, and they can clinch the NFC East depending on how the game between the football team and the Eagles goes. I mean, what do you think about Dallas and the NFC East as a whole?
I think the NFC East as a whole it's always kind of a crapshoot. Dallas started off on fire. They've kind of come back down to earth. Dak Prescott had a tough injury, I think, kind of similar to Kyler Murray. He's still recovering a little bit from that, and he's been off. But I think, we would expect the strength of Dallas to be their offense, but it's been their defense this year. So as long as that defense continues to play well, I think that offense will get right. Zeke's playing through an injury. Tony Pollard's been phenomenal for them. I think they're still the team to beat in the NFCs by a long shot, and I just don't think Washington has the gas down the stretch to be able to do anything special. I think they'll lose tomorrow in Philly, or not tomorrow, Tuesday. But yeah, I think Dallas is definitely the team to beat, sitting there at 10-4. The defense, was on point today. So yeah, Dallas is the team to beat. Could definitely be a sneaky Super Bowl pick if they can get that offense back to the level that it's been at. And we've seen it with CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper.
So, real quick before we end, I want to get everyone's opinion. Right, we're gonna go to this mode just to talk. I'm just trying to make you big. There you go. Clack, give me your opinion.
Little man.
Final prediction for tonight's Sunday night game.
Say that one more time.
Final prediction for tonight's Sunday night game. Give me some hot takes. Give me some score predictions. Whatever you want to say about the Bucs.
I'm gonna go Bucs 31-13. Tom Brady throws for 350.
Shoot, I'd take that for my fantasy team.
354 touchdowns for Brady.
Joe Will, you're up. Give me your.
I'd say Bucs 34, Saints 24.
Okay. Do you have any
Saints?
other?
That Saints going to score that many points?
Yep, it's the NFL clock.
It is the NFL, and I guess I will go. I'll say Bucs 30, Saints 20. I'll say it's going to be a closer game than Clack thinks. I think that division games especially are always really weird, right? It is the NFL, but more importantly to me, it's a division game. You look at them, they're always wild. And so I think that the Saints will come out and try to, put on a show, but I think that Taysom Hill or even Trevor Siemian, if he plays, is not going to be enough to overcome the GOAT in Tom Brady. And I think that the Bucs will win comfortably, but it won't be a blowout. So,
all right.
that's it for all of us. So thank you so much for coming to our first Sunday Night Scoreboard. We'll be here every week, same time, 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern if you're weird like Joe. And, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you all for watching. We'll continue to try and grow and get better and try and sprinkle in some guests on here, hopefully going forward into the new year. But hope everybody has a good rest of their night.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Chrysler.
See you next week.